something has survived and died and been retconned back to life. This week on the Movie Theater Butter podcast, we've unearthed the absolutely ancient story of Jurassic Park: The Lost World, the second Jurassic Park movie, loosely based on the second Jurassic Park book by Michael Crichton. Oh my god, I spelled that wrong in my notes. I spelled it Michelle Crichton.
Michael Crichton.
Yeah, Michael Crichton. With me today is Dinophile and Dungeon Master for the Draconic Park TTRPG series, now on YouTube. Oh my god, I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
You've never said my last name. How embarrassing. Give it a shot, though, because I do love hearing it.
Andre Gardere.
Nope, but that's good. It's pronounced Andre Gardere. Hello. I've always had every substitute teacher I've ever had in school say Gardere. And even some of my close friends in high school just called me Gardere and didn't use any of my other name. They just said my last name incorrectly. But yeah, hello. How are you?
I'm good. I'm alive. As you know, that's the best response I can think of for that, because to get super deep into how I am is a little too heavy for the podcast right now. So
I should have known better to ask a less deep question than how are you?
Yeah, I could just say fine. I'm fine. How are you?
I think that's what most people do. I don't think most people are doing fine, but I think almost everyone says fine. I'm doing fine.
Yeah, that's the only thing we can say nowadays, even though
the
world is a little bit crumbling all around us. Anyways, dinosaurs. So let's start off, as we always do, with a favorite quote. And Andre, I know you came to us today with a favorite quote of just a quote, not even necessarily from the source material that you like. But do you have one from the movie, or can you make one up on the spot just for the purpose of the thing?
The one that the one I came with was one of my favorite quotes from all time. It's stuck with me for many years now. Not at all from The Lost World, but it's from Futurama, and that's when have you seen the episode when Bender becomes a god?
Oh god, yeah, that's been a minute. Yeah.
Well, when he actually does meet God, he says, when you do something right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all. That stuck with me for many years.
Damn.
But in The Lost World, not a lot of quotable moments for me, but I did like the line that hit the hardest was when Ian Malcolm leaned forward and he's like, "Now you're John Hammond." And I love that. That was great.
That's the one that hits the most, because it's very that character up until then is making the same exact mistakes anyways. And it's just a very nail in the coffin moment where it's you fucked up and now you got to pay for it.
Yeah, he wants to do what Hammond tried to do, but he does even worse. He falls on his face even harder, because I think he had no vision to begin with. He was just kind of piecing stuff together. But we'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah,
true, accurate. I couldn't find anything super deep from this source material, so the only quote that I brought as my favorite today is, "They get very angry when you run out of film," which just happens early on. They're shooting 35 millimeters of dinosaurs, and Sarah's roll goes out and it starts automatically rewinding and making a noise, and all the dinosaurs go crazy. And so it's just a silly, cheesy line to be they get very angry when you run out of film. And I was that was the first line in the movie, probably one of the only lines in the movie that I went I chuckled. So that's my favorite quote.
That's from the movie? That's not from the book? They say that in the movie?
Maybe I was too distracted. Very angry when you run out of film.
Maybe I was too distracted by all of the Nikon product placement that was so aggressive in this movie. This movie was brought to you by Nikon and Mercedes, and it's very obvious.
And Burger King at the end with the bus. Oh, and Blockbuster. Because it rams into a Blockbuster.
Yeah, I don't know if those were product placements, because they might have been. I don't know. They were just trying to show hey, this is San Diego, Blockbuster, 76 gas station, the Whopper. And God, that scene with the Japanese businessmen running, it was so shameless. I was like, Jesus Christ, man. Restrain yourself a little bit, but
try and make a slightly better film, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or just keep trying and make 10 more of the same not that great films.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Spielberg wasn't trying, but I think the whole I mean, if you want to talk about it now or wait till later, when the whole like T-Rex in San Diego bit was like Spielberg's idea, because like, excuse me, he wanted
Yeah.
his like monster movie, like he wanted his like, King Kong, he wanted his Godzilla, he wanted a monster in the city, and he was like, let's have the T-Rex get it go over to San Diego for some reason, and it was just it felt very tacked on, honestly.
It felt very tactile. It was like that part of the film. I was like, okay, this is interesting if you kind of make this a whole film. Like if you do Monster in the City, but now it's dinosaurs. If
Yeah.
you come up with a story to like solidify that and make that the whole film, yeah, I could have been on board. That would have been fun. I'm sure Spielberg would have crushed it. But that being just like kind of the third act for no real strong reason, it just was like, and that wasn't okay. And that wasn't in the book. And even the book itself, so the adaptation of it all for a minute, even the book itself, this is the second book that Michael Crichton wrote in the series. I think there's nothing else after this. So it's the only other book in the
And he
series.
wrote this because they wanted to make a sequel. He didn't
Yeah.
plan
So
on
he
making
like
this.
wrote this almost as an adaptation of the film version adaptation of his book in a
Yeah.
way. So it was really like he knew it was going to be made into a movie, and it showed in like not a good way.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to talk about the movie, the first 20 minutes, like, I check the time code. The entire first 20 minutes of the movie was just exposition and
Mhm.
covering what happened between the first movie and the second movie. And holy shit, was it boring. And Ian Malcolm is like, he kind of feels like a different character, because like he's doing all this because his girlfriend got sent over, and like, wasn't he like a ladies man in the first movie, and like he was trying to get with
Yeah.
like Laura Dern's character, and like it's established that he loves kids, but it doesn't, like, going into this much danger. Like, he's clearly been telling horror stories for these 4 years. Going into more dinosaurs for a girlfriend feels unlike Ian Malcolm.
Yes.
If they had like
Yeah.
made it his sister or his wife, or and like him and what was it, Julianne Moore's her name, they didn't have like a romantic scene in the movie at all. I don't even know if they ever kissed. Like, the point of it being his girlfriend, what was the point of making her his girlfriend?
Yeah. Literally nothing. And that character was like all of the characters in the film were like a mishmash of the book characters. It was really weird because again, just the whole story is derived from like there's so much retconning, okay? Like let's get this out right now. Hammond and Malcolm die in the first book.
Yeah.
And they don't die in the first movie, as we all know. So then when Spielberg was like, oh my God, I could totally do a sequel, and Michael Crichton wrote this next book, he had to like bring them back. And then with that, like the characters that you're kind of setting up for, it's just a big, I don't even know what to say about it. It's just like a big, nasty casserole of leftovers kind of thing.
So I
Like
didn't.
it didn't feel like it was all put together nicely. It was just kind of thrown in there to have certain things. And that's immediately where you lose everything, because then you don't have logic to these characters. You have like this girlfriend character who is interesting and cool in her own right, but then trying to tie it into Malcolm is like we like lost some of the characterization that we gained by the end of the first movie.
Yeah, I haven't read the Lost World. How do they bring back Hammond and Malcolm without it being like super like weird and not like a what if type situation?
Yeah, it's like, so it's actually been a minute since I read it. I read it for this podcast last week and skimmed over, and I kind of just got super lost in it because
That's
it
fine.
just wasn't.
We don't need to go into the
wasn't-
depths of that, but
Yeah,
bringing
but
them
it's just
back is
like,
already like a bad sign.
yeah. In the book, though, I will say in the book, Hammond doesn't come back. Am I forgetting that? I don't think Hammond comes back in the book,
He
but
doesn't
he is in
need
the
to.
movie.
He shouldn't have been in this movie. Like,
Yeah, he's
there
there
was
for like
zero
5
point.
minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, he was there for exposition. Is all that it was. Oh, did you catch the Steven Spielberg cameo in this movie? By the way,
Wait, whoa, where?
Steven Spielberg is in Do you remember at the end of the movie, Ian, his girlfriend, and his daughter are asleep on the couch, and his daughter is watching the ship go, like the King Kong ship go across the waters. Steven Spielberg's in the reflection of the TV. Like in the
Oh,
reflection of the TV, it's Ian Malcolm, his girlfriend, Steven Spielberg, and the daughter. And it's like you can
cute.
clearly see it. And then they cut to the reverse shot, and obviously Spielberg's not there.
I like that. That's a good director's cameo. Very small. You don't have to have him like say a line or do any acting.
No, he's
He just
literally a
exists.
reflection you have to catch, otherwise you just don't see him.
Nice. I dig it. Good job, Steven. Good job on that. And then
And it
on the
was,
rest of the film,
hmm,
not so
yeah. I
much.
mean, I
But
think this film, like, it's fun. Like once you get past the first 20 minutes of exposition, you stop worrying about how shitty all of this has been set up. And because, like, going back real quick, just I think if it
yeah,
was Ian Malcolm's daughter in college trying to like prove herself by going on this like journalistic expedition to a dinosaur island, then obviously that would make so much more sense. She doesn't have to be a gymnast. She doesn't have to kick a rafter out of a wall. That's something that's extremely memorable of this movie. Um, but I think that would have been a lot better. And once you get past the 20 minutes of exposition, it does get a little fun. They, like you said, like the Nikon camera, and then the Stegosaurus is charged, and then it kind of kicks off from there. Like the film does get really fun. It also gets kind of boring towards the end.
yeah. It's kind of just some of the directing was definitely because again, it's Spielberg. I mean, he at the very least knows how to make a decent film for sure, even if it's not like the best film of all time. But yeah, the fun was definitely there. There were moments that were cool, and there were moments that were, I would say, semi-iconic. You know, like not iconic enough that everyone in the world knows, but enough that like it has stuck itself in the popular culture still.
I would say
But
the
yeah,
Julianne Moore on Glass scene is straight up iconic. Like I think everyone
yeah.
knows that scene.
hmm What about the tent when she's like in the
I
yeah, and
I
like the
remembered it.
silhouette? hmm
Yes, I remembered it. I wouldn't say it's even semi-iconic, but I mean, if you
Okay,
liked it,
okay.
you liked it. Like, I think if you talk to anyone about this movie, they're going to mention the glass scene and the T-Rex in San Diego, and that's it.
Yeah, true.
Mm.
But you know, again, it goes back to at least I think it goes back to some of the characters because okay, the core of my problem with this film and this story is that it's like literally Michael Crichton made this same mistake as his character, bringing back the dead when he shouldn't have, kind of thing. Like that's literally the whole core of Jurassic Park is like you
Right.
bring back dinosaurs, that's a bad idea. And Michael Crichton did the same thing where he brought back Ian and Hammond when he shouldn't have. Ian, I think there's a it's just because of the movies, I think to have him in this movie is fine. I think it was cool and it did kind of like keep you moving along. And he is still an interesting character. But even then it's like again, we lose so much of like the character development that we got to by the end of the first one. And we also like we lose a lot of the stakes, I think, with the story. Cause like and again, it's so confusing. Movie wise, keep Ian because he didn't even die in the movie. Sure.
Yeah.
Book wise, Ian died, leave him dead, don't bring him back. But
Well,
I guess it just comes down to also like this book being kind of based on the movie to begin with,
oh yeah,
and then
I was
going
gonna
that way
say
is like that's the whole problem.
Michael Crichton. The movie got so much more success than the book got. So I actually completely understand from his point of view, like saying "fuck my first book." I'm just going to write my second book based off the movie because the movie was so much better than the book, and it did so much better than the book. Why even stick to the book, and why be that guy who's like, well, actually, in my books, it's like no, the movie is more iconic than your book now. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
So I get that.
Yeah. I don't know.
But
It's just all messy.
yeah, I
Just got
mean,
really messy. Like
it
we
did get
lost what
messy.
was fun about Jurassic Park, which is like obviously dinosaurs,
Hmm.
but the fact that like we get so quickly and beautifully attached to our main characters and seeing how they interact with each other and in this like survival situation that like now you get to the second one and yeah, you've got two familiar characters, but I don't know. It just it just like lost a lot of the heart that the first one had.
I mean, it definitely did. Like this, this isn't really a dinosaur movie in my mind. This is a monster movie. Like they
Mhm.
weren't living in like in cages or anything and they break out and it's like, "Oh no, now we have to like survive dinosaurs breaking out of their inhabitant or habitats." Now it's like there is an island full of monsters. Let's go there. Oh no, monsters are attacking us. Like with the raptors in near the end of the movie when the raptors show up, they could have been replaced by any movie monster. They could have been replaced by rabid dogs. Like they
Mhm.
did not do anything that raptors were set up to do in the first movie. They literally ran at people and the first time or the first attack on one of the main characters, the raptor jumps on Julianne Moore and grabs her backpack and she gets up and runs away and it's still eating her backpack. And I'm like, you're supposed to be like a really smart creature. Why are you letting the thing made of flesh run away from you while you attack a backpack? And they used a lot. I don't know if you noticed this. They used a lot of dog sound effects for the raptors, which I don't know if they did in the first movie. There was so much growling in it from the raptors that made them seem like dogs in the first place. And
Mhm.
I mean, they ran into cars, they broke windows, they like jumped through windows, they like dug under a shed trying to get to them. They were just like
Mhm.
stupid mindless monsters. That's all they were. And it just really undercuts all of the setting up the dinosaurs that it had in the first movie.
Yeah. Part of like one of the big moments of the first movie is even just discovering the fact that like yeah, we tried to engineer them so that they can't reproduce, but oh, plot twist, we mix them with frogs and frogs can figure that shit out kind of
Yeah.
thing. And it's like yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying about like this is much more of just a monster movie and not really like a reanimated dinosaur movie because
Yeah.
there's a lot more that comes with that. There's a lot more mystery even that comes with like bringing dinosaurs back from the dead. Of like we still don't know everything about dinosaurs, and that's part of what they were discovering in the first one. Is like oh now we figured out this about them that we didn't know because they're right here in front of us, you know, attacking us in this way or hunting us in this way.
Yeah. And then I mean, I liked Vince Vaughn in this movie a lot. Vince Vaughn was really good. I mean, the actors were great, like Julianne Moore, fucking Vince Vaughn, Jeff Goldblum. They did really well, but for some reason it was just not memorable. I guess it's just because the message wasn't there that was in the first movie, and this was so like heavy on the exposition and there wasn't like this sense of adventure. It was like, oh no, now I have to go rescue my girlfriend from this island. And then he goes to the island and it feels like there's no sense of wonderment or adventure out of this movie. But one thing I'll say, the other aspect of the movie is the whole like military aspect, where it's like, oh, now there's military coming in, and like I kind
Mm-hmm.
of like that juxtaposition from like, oh, these are the scientists and these are the military, and they are separated for a bit and then they have to work together. I do like that part.
It made sense too, and it helped ultimately like build the world of Jurassic Park that we know and love today.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, super weak villain. What's his name?
Yeah.
I don't even know his name. That's a good sign for a good villain. Hammond's nephew.
Yeah. I the name Dodson, it's not him though. That's a
No,
totally different
it's
guy. But
not. Yeah,
oh my god, yeah, whatever. Nephew guy, nephew
yeah.
Hammond.
Yeah, he shows up with all the military guys, and they start fucking wrangling up monsters. God damn, dinosaurs. See what this movie does to me? Like I watched this
Yeah.
movie 2 hours ago, and I'm just calling them monsters. They were wrangling up all the dinosaurs, and I mean, I like the like, um, although it didn't really make sense because what was it? Vince Vaughn's character was introduced as being like he was like, "Oh yeah, you covered like wars and protests, right? What'd you do that for?" And he was like, "Oh, I did that for the women."
Mhm.
And then when he sees a dying, like young T Rex, he grabs it and he's like, "We need to fix this right now. We need to help this animal." And it's like, what? This isn't your character
Yeah.
at all. What are you talking about? You need to fix
That's
this animal.
that's the core of it. Well, one of the again cores of it for me is like again just the characterization. It's like a lot of these characters too, they set up as being intelligent and logical for some reason, and then they make really stupid decisions or decisions that are like so far against what they've established these people to be. Like you said earlier, like even Ian going to like save his girlfriend from an island, that's like a poor excuse, right? Like he has had an experience that only a select few in the world have had
Yeah.
with, almost being killed by alive again fucking dinosaurs. And you
Mm.
would think that that would traumatize you enough to be like, I'm never going back there. And yes, if your girl or if somebody close to you and important to you all of a sudden is on that island, but even them being on the island in the first place, I'm like, you have to be smart enough that if you are Sarah Harding and your boyfriend is Ian Malcolm, who almost died by T-Rex and various other dinosaurs, and I'm like, he told her that.
Four
She
years. She said
knows.
4 years of horror stories.
Yeah, 4 years of horror. Then how are you so stupid to be like, yeah, I'm gonna go take pictures of them? Like, no, no one's gonna do that. And then even early on, when his daughter stows away, which is another silly thing, like even she's got to be smart enough because she also knows the stories to not go in the first place. But like, there's this whole moment too where Ian is like talking to her in the trailer, and he's like talking to her and Sarah, and kind of trying to control both of them and trying to tell them like, we got to get out of here, blah blah blah. Um, and as he's having this kind of argument specifically with Sarah, he tries to kick Kelly out. He's like, go
Mm.
outside. Like, we're having this argument. And even that, I'm like, no, you're so stupid. You're on another island of dinosaurs. You don't know where any of them are. You don't know anything that you're facing today. And you're going to tell your daughter that you just found out who stowed away
Well, I
with
think they
you,
played that for
go
laughs.
outside?
Because he was like, no, 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 what are you doing? Don't go out there. There's monsters out there. Come back in, come back in, come back in. Like, I think they were playing that for laughs because Ian was having this
Like,
problem with
breakdown.
his girlfriend for some reason. Like, it didn't even make sense. Like, and then
It was just,
this
yeah.
scene was a whole bunch of exposition too, because it's like, let's tell the audience how our relationship has been for 4 years. You never went to anything that I wanted to go to. And she was like, oh, yeah, you show up on an island. Sometimes I just want you to show up in a cab. And it's like, okay, is this going to help the
Yeah.
movie at all? And the answer is no.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, one thing I also one thing stuck out to me in this movie was a little Steven Spielberg trick. Because do you know about the helicopter landing in the first movie? Do you know about that? Like, it's always talked about online. Oh, it's
Mm-mm.
like so in the very first movie, the helicopter lands at that anthropology site, and then what's his name, uh Dr. Alan Grant runs up to the helicopter, and the helicopter pilot is like, in your trailer, in your trailer. And then Dr. Grant runs,
Mm.
and he's in his trailer somehow. And it's like, wait a minute. So he came down
Oh,
on
yeah, yeah,
helicopter,
yeah.
ran past all of you at super speed, and he's in your trailer. And it's
It
like,
was his
and
decoy, obviously.
exactly. And then I think that was like a little Steven Spielberg magic, where it's like, it doesn't make sense at all, but when you're watching it, it makes sense on screen. Like, that's a
Yeah.
little Steven. So one of those things that happened in this movie, like 10 to 15 men were running from a T-Rex, and they all ran into the waterfall. And then we follow them into the waterfall, and there's only three people in the waterfall. It's Vince Vaughn, it's Ian Malcolm, and it's Julianne Moore and the daughter. And where were the other 15 men? Do you remember this part in the movie? It drove me crazy.
Yeah.
And then one of the
It's another
guys
thing
is
that
like,
I didn't notice until you just pointed it out now.
yeah, and then that one guy's like, "Oh, the snake," and he runs out and gets bit by the T Rex. But it was bizarre. I was like, it's I guess it's good filmmaking if most of the people don't notice it, but it's so bizarre. I was like, I guess they were like, we need this scene to be focused on a manageable amount of people, and all the other people just get in the way. So once they all run into the cave or whatever, they're gone.
Yeah.
Weird.
That's wild. Now I have to go back and watch it again, and I don't really want to.
Mm.
Just to notice, I'll
You
watch
don't
the
need to
scenes on
watch. Yeah,
YouTube.
just watch the scene and then also watch for the Steven Spielberg cameo at the end. That's really all you gotta watch.
Yeah. It's giving. Did you ever see that video in school growing up where it's like a bunch of people playing basketball? And at the beginning, it's like, count how many baskets they make or like how many times they pass the ball. And so you
Yes,
watch the video and you're like trying to count how many times they pass the ball. And at the end of the video, it's like, did you see the
the bear.
person
Yeah,
dressed in a, yeah, or whatever costume it is walk by? And you're like, no, I didn't see that. And then you got
yeah,
to watch it again.
yeah. It's like Spielberg's jingling the keys, and you're looking at the keys, and he sneaks something by you, and it's like, oh well, I guess that's good filmmaking if nobody noticed.
Quite literally, movie magic.
Yes. I had a professor in college who fucking hated Jurassic Park. And like I don't remember what he said because I tuned it out because I love Jurassic Park so much, but he made a lot of valid points and I was like, "Okay, those are all valid points, but that doesn't make me dislike the movie like anymore. I love this fucking movie, but apparently there's people
Yeah.
out there that don't like it."
Yeah, well, there's just people out there with really bad taste in film, and I pity them. And that's just pretty sad.
Yeah, if you want we could talk about our boy Eddie who got like a fucking horrible death that he didn't deserve.
Yes. Wait, Eddie. Who's Eddie?
Eddie, the bald guy who was trying to save them from the trailer going over the edge.
Oh,
And he
yep.
like he hooks everything up and he hooks it to the tree and he hooks it to his thing and he's reversing and
Hmm.
two fucking T-Rexes come through and just eat his ass and I mean
Damn.
it was a horrible death for a good guy who like uh, they said he was like an equipment specialist, but for some reason he was the one running around with a gun, and it makes me realize like you didn't bring any like
Dude,
military aid or like someone to just watch out with a big gun.
that's another thing. How unprepared were like all of these characters? Again, dude, you're going up against dinosaurs, literal motherfucking dinosaurs. And I think like one of them brought like a decent sized kind of tranquilizer thing in the beginning, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure, I guess that makes sense.
Hmm.
Even then, I'm like, you should every single person should have shown up in a tank at the very least.
Well, they could in the exposition. Hammond was saying, "Oh, I sent a bunch of people, or three or four people, to the island that are going to like do very, very low impact observation on the dinosaurs." And he even mentioned what was that woman? Who's the woman that lived with the apes?
I don't know.
You don't remember? You don't know that famous
Now
scientist
I'm
that
thinking
lived?
it's like I'm literally just thinking of King Kong. Oh, Jane Goodall.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, he mentioned like, "Oh, your girlfriend's trying to be Jane Goodall or whatever."
Mhm.
Because they're supposed to be like, just observing the dinosaurs, no impact. And then as soon as they fucking get there, she goes up to the little stegosaurus and starts touching it. And I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah.
I'm already like getting mixed signals here. Like the 20 minutes of exposition that I watched and didn't like now means nothing. It's like, what was it there for anyway? But I guess
Yeah.
ideally they were supposed to be high up in trees and just like looking at dinosaurs. So that's why they were so ill equipped. But and then eventually like InGen shows up with all helicopters and tanks and shit, and
Mhm.
yeah, I mean they were well equipped until they were sabotaged by the fucking nerd squad who came in and like unleashed all the dinosaurs and they ran down all their equipment, radio equipment and stuff. Yeah.
That's the part that makes sense.
Hmm.
Those kind of teams and again, what happens with those sort of again like teams of this movie makes sense. But it's like kind of our main characters and the reason why the main characters are there and what they're up to. That's just like totally falls flat. I think there's a world in which this story could have been focusing on characters that are on either side of like, military, InGen, all that, that we could have, because we did have characters there that were still interesting and fun to watch and
Hmm.
made a lot more sense just logically than, again, Ian and Sarah and Kelly and all them. That it was like, again, why are you here? Like in the book, okay, in the book, it is the reason anybody goes there in the first place is because there's like a student of Malcolm's who's like, I'm going to prove you wrong, Dr. Malcolm. I think
Oh,
dinosaurs still exist and I'm going to go and find them. And so he goes and he finds the existing dinosaurs on Isla Sorna. And then Ian is like, oh no, that's bad. Let me go save you. And
mm.
brings the whole team. But even that makes more sense. Like, I think it makes a lot more sense for a student to just be kind of like stupid and adventurous versus, like, again, a
Yeah.
fully grown adult scientist woman who has heard all of the horror stories firsthand of Scary Dinosaur Island to be like, I'm gonna go.
I like that way more. I like a student going out to prove something way more than, oh no, my girlfriend's on the island. I gotta go save her. Like
Yeah,
that's terrible.
100%. Completely. Okay, another thing I want to talk about in just like the differences between the book and the movie here, the opening scene of this film
Is the
is
opening
actually,
of the first book.
yes,
Yeah.
very famously is the opening of the first book. And it kind of fucking changes everything. And if in the first movie they would have opened with this scene, I think we would have had a very different franchise overall. Because even, okay, you've read the original Jurassic Park book, the first one, yes?
Yes. It was in
Okay.
college, so many years ago now, but I did read it.
Yeah, but like you remember that vaguely, at least they started to talk about how there are dinosaurs in other places in the world. Like that was kind of the part of the crux of this original book was
Mhm.
that Michael Crichton was like, there are a couple of dinosaurs around the world a little bit. I'm
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, where did all that come from? Where did all that happen? And that's a huge part of the story. And then it never really gets talked about. Like they never really go further with that. Like if I'm remembering correctly from the first book, they make it seem like, oh, these must have been creatures that like escaped from the island and then evolved or whatever.
Mhm.
But I also remember that there was a whole factor that they talked about in the first book of like, I don't remember the term, but it's something along the lines of like dinosaurs evolved back. Instead of like being reanimated by Hammond, they talked about how one possibility is that dinosaurs may have just evolved back into the world kind of thing.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't know if they just talked about it as like a potential theory
Yeah.
because again, it's also been a minute since I've read that book, but
Yeah.
it's just at the very least though they had dinosaurs that were just not specifically on this island. They were
Mhm.
elsewhere as well. And they could have discovered that like that could have been I mean, the end of this film, right? The end of this film when they go to San Diego and like, oh my god, no, dinosaurs in San Diego now. That's so bad and that could like leak elsewhere.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, that's like one possible way of going about and finally then getting to a Jurassic World era of it all. But you also could have just said, like, I don't know, some of them just like swam
Yeah.
away from the island and
Honestly,
fucked up elsewhere.
I think that as a kid, that was actually my headcanon because obviously as a child, I did not comprehend the first 20 minutes of this movie. A, it was boring and I was a child. But also B, it was just boring for an adult too. But my headcanon was at the end of the first movie, they show I think it was like pteranodons or pterodactyls flying away from the island. So I was like, oh, I guess they flew to this island and like they started like a whole dinosaur population again and like they have to go deal with that. But no, in the movie they're like this was like a breeding site, not Isla Nublar. There was another island that they bred animals on and then moved it to that one, which is not viable in my opinion. I was like, because they showed the scientist with the fucking eggs in the first movie, and that was so
Mm.
cool. And having it be like this off-site breeding ground makes the first movie that less cool. They're like, "Oh, we just shipped the dinosaurs in from this island over here," and it's like,
It is literally, we have a second Death Star.
"Oh yeah,
It's the
100%."
same, yeah.
It's
It's the
like
same
why?
like lame storytelling technique of like, well, we don't really know how to like start us off on a similar foot other than to say that we started off on a similar foot
Yeah.
and just go from there.
One thing I noted down when I was watching this movie, the when Kelly sneaks into the RV and looks at the map, there's the five islands. One of them's Isla Nublar, one of them's something else, and then another one was Isla Muertas, which is the Death Island, which I thought was funny. But then Vince Vaughn seemed super shocked when he was speaking to the boat captain, and the boat
It's
captain
like
was
you
like,
call them
"These are the
death
5
islands.
deaths," and it's like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? Are they? Is it called Isla Muertes, or is it the 5 deaths? And it's, why did you not know this before accepting this job? I don't know. I marked that down as something funny.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it was like overly dramatic. And I was like, we know, okay,
Yeah.
we get it. Dinosaurs, the 5 dead. Like, there's no need to like super zoom in on his face when he says it.
Mhm.
But
There was a couple
yeah,
of
that's
weird
crazy.
there was a couple of weird shots in this movie. One of them was when they got to the top of the high hide. It was him and Eddie and his daughter.
Hmm.
And you hear the first like T-Rex roar, which obviously is an iconic moment for, and this movie knows it. Um, I really wanted it to hang on Ian Malcolm's face of just like pure dread, like, fuck, I have to deal with T-Rexes again. But they only showed Ian Malcolm's face like for a second, and then they moved on to Kelly's face, and then they moved on to Eddie's face, and I was like, bro, if you just held on his fucking face, and I'm sure Jeff Goldblum gave you some good shit, you know, that was one
Hmm.
thing I was like, oh, that I wanted something different out of that. And then there was also, do you remember when pretty early in the movie when the like scientist squad finds the military squad, and the military squad are like wrangling dinosaurs?
Hmm.
Do you remember them hanging on everyone's face for a solid like 3.5 seconds each? So it added up
Yeah.
to like 15 seconds of just extreme close up. And I was like,
Yeah.
all right, all right, like, let's
Like,
keep going. Let's keep the movie going. And it was like, okay, well, I guess
yeah.
that's just what it's going to be.
Gotta give everyone their face time, you know? Gotta give everyone their moment to shine, even if they're not like a named character that ever comes up again.
Yeah, I guess so. Even though Eddie was going to die like 10 minutes later in movie terms.
True.
Also, if we're talking about like character, like motivations and stuff, the I don't know his name in the movie or in real life, the bald headed guy who wanted to hunt a T Rex really bad.
Yeah.
Um, so
The
he,
scary guy who like changed his ways in the end, he was like, I'm not doing this anymore, Chief.
yeah, well, like his whole thing was like, I want to kill a male T Rex,
Mhm.
and then he finally tranks a male T Rex, and then he's like, it's not worth it because like Ajar or like Ajax, I forgot the dude's name. He's like, Ajax died, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, did that guy mean anything to you? Like, did you have any lines with this guy? And he's like, I've been around death long enough. And he like turns
Yeah.
away to the helicopter, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what the fuck are you talking about?
It was like that was character development that I wanted to see, but like where was it? Like you skip to the end point without super developing how he really truly got there. Like if we would have seen tender moments between him and that character
Exactly, yeah.
and thoroughly established like they're bros, they're like ride or die,
Mhm.
and then he dies, then it would have been like, oh God. Um
Yeah, and like
and then even
or
then the
like at
hunting
least
aspects too, it's also like, well, how do you now all of a sudden not give a fuck about it? Like
mhm.
what
Or
really
at least an
changed?
on-screen death for this guy, because he
Yeah.
dies off screen. Like, I think the guy he's talking about is the guy yelling, don't run through the tall grass. Do you remember that? He was like, not through the
Vaguely.
tall grass, don't go through the tall grass, because for some
Yeah.
reason this guy knows velociraptors are in the tall grass.
Yeah.
Why does he know this? I don't know, but he's
They
like,
don't
don't
know
run through the
anything
tall
else
grass.
about dinosaurs except for the
No.
fact that don't go in the tall grass.
Yeah, and this guy has like a handful of speaking lines, but one of them was "Don't run through the tall grass," and then he runs off screen and apparently dies. And he's like, "Bro, this dude died. I'm out. Like, fuck all this." And it's like, you must have had friends die along the way, or like you said, a tender moment with this character, and like a gruesome on-screen death would have been cool. And then that would have made like, if he like, if you saw a shot where like this dude's realizing like, holy fuck, people are dying and like this is really bad, all for like trying to get a T-Rex, then this character like progression makes sense. But no, it's all off screen and it's really forced, and they get him out of the movie really fast so they can have T-Rex in San Diego.
Yeah. Good old T Rex in San Diego, which again could have been like it was still fun. I still had fun at that part, but it's just like to toss it in as the third act out of nowhere is kind of like a bad compromise.
Well, and I, oh yeah. If you want to talk
Also,
about another famous thing that's always talked about on the internet. Did you want to talk about the ship logic?
The ship logic of okay, okay. Here's what I think you're talking about. So the boat, right? There's
Mhm.
a T-Rex who's like in a box on a
Yep.
boat, and no other dinosaurs
Yes.
theoretically, just
That's
the
the
yeah, yeah. So there's a T-Rex in a box on a boat, and somehow
contained.
T-Rex gets out. Yeah, and somehow T-Rex gets uncontained, which there's a way that that can happen, totally, sure.
Right.
But then mauls everybody on the boat with minimal damage to the actual infrastructure of the boat,
Mm-hmm.
goes back into the
Yup.
cage, rams the somehow the boat happens to ram in kind of the right area, which I could believe that because of movie magic,
Yeah.
but then comes out
Yes.
again as like a
Against yes.
surprise. I killed everyone and then hid again.
So, yes, in the movie, it makes no fucking sense. Exactly how you described it. Apparently, there is a scene cut from the movie where a velociraptor gets on board, and the velociraptor kills everyone, and they just cut that from the movie. So now it's really confusing.
Yeah.
And like, where
What
did the
if they
velociraptor go?
Yeah, where did the velociraptor go? And then also like that's just weird. That's I mean, if you're gonna cut that scene, put something in there to explain it.
Mm-hmm. Because
Otherwise, it just doesn't make any sense.
yeah, because everybody assumes the T Rex killed them because that's the only dinosaur on the boat that we know of. But it's still contained, and then it gets broken loose, and somehow it still goes to San Diego port, like the exact spot it needs to get to. Like this must have happened seconds before the port, in
Yeah.
order for this boat to still be going in that direction.
It would have been a lot more interesting if it was just like a rogue captain who was
Yeah.
just like, we shouldn't be holding these dinosaurs captive. I'm going to kill everybody on the boat and I'm going to ram the boat into San Diego and hope that the T Rex escapes. Like, that would have made more sense.
Yeah. Also, it pisses me off that they're in the fucking mission control center, or whatever you call that for docks, and they're like, "You need to reduce your speed now. You need to reduce your speed now." And it's like, bro, hit an alarm. Like, let people know on the dock that a giant ship is about to plow into the fucking harbor. No alarm was set at all. Granted, it's a great scene of the ship coming out of the fog and running into the dock, and everybody runs screaming. But logically, it's like, bro, hit a fucking button, do an alarm. It was just
Yeah.
that took me out of it a little bit.
Also, again, with like the military of it all, San Diego is the Navy is right there, all over San Diego. They have an
Yeah.
entire fucking island. Like, there's no way that you have a giant dinosaur being transported in a ship
Mhm.
and not like 1,000 fucking battleships surrounding it, like, escorting it over kind of thing. Let alone the second that you notice that like communication isn't happening between uh shore and that
Mhm.
boat. Again, you should have. There's no way that the Navy's just like literally entirely in all of San Diego and completely sleeping on the dinosaur boat. Like, no.
Yeah.
And they come in later, but like later.
Yeah, I mean, this is another one of those things where they do a lot of things for a certain shot or for a surprise, and in order for that shot or surprise to happen, they need to throw logic out the window, and
Mhm.
that always takes you out of a movie every time for me. Like when the T-Rex escapes the boat, runs down the dock and runs into the city and roars on a rock overlooking San Diego for that shot. Nobody hears this. Nobody calls the cops. Nobody calls anything. And then it gets like to a neighborhood and starts eating a dog without any cops or helicopters or anything
It's like
scrambling.
so quiet up until
Yes.
finally somebody notices it face to face and screams.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, come on, girl. Like,
I hate that shit. I hate when they like remove the logic of a giant thing's footsteps for like a surprise, like like towards the
yeah.
end when his villain man goes down to get the little baby T-Rex, and the big T-Rex follows him into the ship. You would have heard that thing coming so long ago. Like,
So many opportunities also to bring back the for lack of a better word, wiggling cup of water. kind of
Oh,
thing,
and
or
they
the
did that.
the water that like
They did
yeah,
that
but I
several
mean like
times
so
this
many
movie.
opportunities at the very least in the end also to bring it back because like again when a dinosaur gets into San Diego, you're gonna notice immediately it's a big city.
Yeah.
Like there's
And
like not everybody's asleep at 9 p.m. first of all, but yeah.
yeah, technically he said it was like 2 a.m. He actually mentioned it for some reason. I don't know why they
Oh,
were
in that
still
case,
trying to solve
everybody's
logic.
getting out of the bars.
Yeah, they were still trying to solve logic for some reason. But one thing that exacerbates the problem is the T-Rex is so iconic for having extremely heavy footsteps that like
Mm-hmm.
ripple water nearby. And then they ignore it. It's like, bro, like if there's one thing you can't ignore about this monster is its big ass footsteps that you set up to be like epic and cool and it was just it's
It's
so
California. Somebody could have been, walking home you could have had a character walking home from the bar, get a cowboy shot, meet him close up, and, this like slightly drunken person, like kind of wiggling on the ground because the T Rex is coming and the footsteps make a huge force. And they could have said something like, oh my God, are we having an earthquake? And then turn around and see a T Rex and scream.
yeah, because he says when he's having that press meeting, he has a press meeting on the dock. Again, Steven Spielberg magic,
Yeah.
where it's just like, okay, this makes
And
sense.
people show up. People show up to
Yeah,
like an improv a
yeah,
2 a.m. press meeting
because
about.
that's why he says it. He's like, oh, thank all of you for coming to the wee hours of the morning to listen to this press conference or whatever. So wee hours of the morning, and it's dark. It's probably like 2 or 3 a.m. Why
Mhm.
is Blockbuster open and there's like 40 people inside the
Yeah,
Blockbuster then?
I forgot
Like,
about
what
that.
the
Yeah.
fuck? What is happening? Why are there so many people on the streets of San Diego at 2 a.m.? Just the logic they throw out the fucking window. Like,
And that's what you need to ground this kind of film, especially after Jurassic Park, the first one, spent so much time embedding like beautifully embedding into the plot the exposition and the science that was necessary to understand the whole thing. Literally even just the fact that like this is a dinosaur park and another like a worse version of the original Jurassic Park could have been that like oh they weren't the fences just weren't durable or something, like they weren't made of good steel, but they went out of their way to be like no, we are smart, we are establishing that like we have all these precautions in place. What ultimately was the downfall was not the fact that characters were stupid, it was that they were greedy and therefore fucking everything up kind of thing.
yeah,
Whereas
his
in this film, it was like the downfall was just that everyone just happened to be kind of stupid and didn't make any sense.
yeah. Let me think about that because in the first movie, the downfall is Hammond was cheap. So he didn't pay Dennis Nedry enough. So Dennis Nedry had to go out of his way to secure the bag of money that he needed from Dotson. And then that led him to subterfuge the park and turn off all the power, stuff like that. Greed is the downfall. What's the downfall of this movie? Let me think about that. The same thing, but with his nephew. Just
Hmm.
hubris, I guess. Just because
Yeah,
if,
ego. And also, I
yeah,
mean, but so many parts of this film still fall apart because characters are just making stupid decisions. Even in the
yeah,
beginning. Again, we go back to the beginning and uh what is supposed to be our introduction to a smart female character, she's like being kind of fucking stupid.
yeah. Uh,
Like going up to a random dinosaur and being like, "Hey, buddy, you're my friend now." And like
Imagine if it
even they even scream her name. They land on
yeah,
the
like
island. The first
5
thing they
feet
do is
away.
like,
And she
"Sarah." I'm
was like
like, "You're an
5 feet away
idiot."
on a log. Like she
Yeah.
definitely heard that and just didn't say anything or let them know. But how much do you think this movie would have changed if instead of being Jeff Goldblum as Ian Falcon, it was Laura Dern?
Did you say Ian Falcon?
Ian Malcolm, sorry.
If instead of Ian Malcolm being like the title character in this, we had Laura Dern as the title
Yeah.
character in this,
Or
that would have been good.
that would have been interesting. Like, oh, but then it would have to be. I honestly, if Sarah was Laura Dern's sister,
That would have
then
been
I
good.
am fully in this movie because, like, again, I've said my problems with Ian Malcolm going because of a girlfriend. It's just not in his character. But Laura Dern going because it's her sister, that would be a lot more interesting to me. It would make way more sense. And I feel like she would do a lot of the things in this movie that Ian Malcolm would never do. Like Ian
Yeah.
Malcolm does a lot of the stuff in this movie that's super out of character for what was established in the first movie. I think Laura Dern would have been much better. But
Yeah.
I
I think
mean,
we would have also seen her sort of like strategically playing some of the sides of the military slash InGen of it all. Like we didn't
mhm,
really see Ian wasn't like trying to manipulate or steer them in a way that would ultimately help him and his family. Which I think that is something
no.
I think Laura Dern's character would have done. I think she would have like noticed what their motivations clearly are and where that's going to lead them and
Mhm.
used that to her advantage to like get the fuck out of there safely.
Yeah, I don't think Ian Malcolm did. He didn't lead this movie at all. Like this entire movie was him reacting to things that other people did.
Mhm.
It had like such a. I mean, it made for a decent like rapid paced movie, but everything he was doing was like reactionary. He was trying to stop people from doing things, and I guess it just came off as like he didn't have a lot of control of the situation, and it wasn't like a gripping character. Because like, think about Ian Malcolm's character arc. What is it?
In this, like nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he doesn't have one.
Hmm.
He's against dinosaurs from the first frame, and now he's against dinosaurs in the last frame. It's the same character. It was a pointless journey.
Hmm. Another reason why, even though he didn't die in the first one, we just shouldn't have brought him back for the second one. We could have used a stronger character that did definitely exist. Or again, there were strong characters in this film. We could have just kind of expanded that a bit more and like leaned on that.
Yeah,
But I
I
know
like.
it's so hard, especially in like a popular 90s film
Mhm.
series to bring in new characters in a sequel. It's like so you can't really do like you have to pitch it to the studio as like, oh yeah, we're bringing Ian back because everybody loves Ian and you know that kind of thing.
Yeah, I did like character actor, man. What's his name? He was in The Big Lebowski. He was the guy that got eaten. He like shocked the little tiny monster, and then he eventually got eaten by
He
all
looks
those
like
monsters.
he looks a lot like Tim Roth.
I think that might have been. It was that Tim Roth. Let me see.
I just every time I
No,
see him, I'm
it
like,
was.
you look like Tim Roth,
Uh,
but I know that he's not.
no, they're very similar character actors, though. Uh, Let me look up his
If
name.
somebody's not going to cast them as family members, I will.
Yeah,
But
he
you
also
know,
gives like John Turturro vibes, but I think they're just in very similar movies together.
hmm.
Let me see if I can find it. He was like the like free spirited shit. I don't think I can find it. It's not coming up. Because that's the only movie I remember him from is The Big Lebowski, which also had Julianne Moore in it now, I'm seeing.
She's kind of a character actor. I mean, she kind of was in her early days, and then she was just so good, as a lot of character actors are, that she kind of blew up.
Yeah, I mean I don't know if I would say Julianne Moore is a specifically character actor. I don't know. I'm giving up on the search. I can't find his name. He was great. I liked him. Shocking the little dinosaur and then ultimately getting dying behind a log off screen. I guess that's just another way to not get a like rated R. Like, what do you know what this movie was rated?
That's kind of my thinking around it too, because I think when he died, that scene they like showed they like the camera like panned off to the water and
Hmm.
like blood was flowing through the current as a way to clearly say he's dead without again showing the violence of it.
I
I
mean,
do
yeah.
think that that was a way for them to keep it PG-13 and to get that generalized audience to
Hmm.
not get because I mean you're a little bit already pressing it with a film about dinosaurs and all of the
Yeah.
violence thereof. And there were definitely sneaky ways that this movie was like, we're gonna show that it's violent and scary, but not like right in your face.
Holy shit, do we see anybody die to a dino? Okay, Eddie gets bitten in half by two T-Rexes. And I just look it up as it is PG-13. And then the guy with the in the waterfall, he similar
We don't
blood down
see.
the waterfall,
Yeah.
exact same way. Um, I think
Anybody in the San Diego, I don't think we see
no, he
outright.
doesn't. He doesn't successfully
We don't
kill
even see
anybody. The
we
dog,
don't even see anything on the boat. I mean, we see somebody's like severed hand, but we
yeah.
kind of only see it like a little bit out of focus.
We don't even see him eat the dog. We just see like the chain in his mouth attached to the doghouse.
Yeah. Which part of that too, just as an artistic choice, part of that could be an artistic choice to make it a little bit more scary. Sometimes it's scary when you don't see the gore because it's creepy when you see water flowing through a river from where you know somebody just stopped screaming suddenly versus
Yeah.
seeing the actual thing. So I think part of it could be an artistic choice in that sense, but I do think overall it probably was their way to keep it
Oh,
PG-13 without it
100%.
being like too
The little
crazy.
the little girl in the first at the beginning of the movie, we don't see her die, and then they actually do a service by saying she's still alive. Like Hammond is like, "Don't worry, she
Oh
lived,"
yeah.
and I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, okay." Like then you didn't
Yeah.
have to cut away. Like, what's the point of cutting away on her screaming? And I guess if they wanted to cut that later to make it easier to get a different rating,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think that's like the only death you see in this entire movie, which is fucking crazy to me.
Yeah. Except the death of John Hammond's ego,
Um,
kind of.
no, not even
The
because remember at the end of the movie, he's on the TV and he's like, "We must protect these islands. We must protect these creatures." And I'm
that's
like,
yeah.
"What are you talking about?" Like, I guess that makes sense because John Hammond really did learn a lesson from the first movie. So I
Mhm.
guess that's in line with his character from the end of the first movie, but he becomes like a naturalist or an environmentalist or some shit. But
Yeah.
I was gonna say, did we see Hammond's nephew villain die?
I don't think so. I can't
Oh wait,
visualize that. Did
oh
we?
okay. The T Rex bit his leg and then gave it to the baby T Rex to kill, but I think we panned up or tilted up, whatever, away
Mhm.
from the baby T Rex eating the villain of the movie.
Yeah.
So it's like, holy.
Yeah, we really don't see a lot of
So
death.
maybe that's why I think Eddie's death was super gruesome because it was the only death in the movie.
That
Maybe,
we actually saw.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's literally the only death we saw in the movie. So like, and they did it to like the nicest guy,
Mhm.
and everyone else was off screen.
Yeah. That's crazy. That is crazy. It's kind of making me think like I've seen Jurassic Park a million times, and even then I'm thinking like what violence did we see? I know we saw the like the
Yeah,
how do I describe
Dilophosaurus.
that in words? Yeah, that's what it is. You know the name of that one?
The one that spits the ink, Dilophosaurus.
Dilophosaurus. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Dilophosaurus, we saw that part. I do remember, and we saw. No, we actually saw only around the toilet death.
No, no, we saw the toilet death.
We saw the toilet death.
Yeah,
Okay.
the T Rex. He's like, it's all the walls fall away, and he's sitting on the toilet, and the T Rex comes down and like bites his midsection and like goes up
Yes,
and like actually eats him.
we did see that. Okay, so there must have been.
And then Dennis Nedry,
Yeah.
technically, the Dilophosaurus jumps in the Jeep, and then like the Jeep rocks, and like it's an implied death. We don't
So
see
we
a whole
get
lot of
blood
gore.
splatters a little bit.
I
I
don't
think.
know if we get any blood splatters there. I think no, because the Jeep starts rocking, and then we
Mhm.
pan down to the water where
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the thing is falling into the mud, and then it gets covered in mud. So that's like a semi cutaway as well.
Huh. PG-13, man.
Yeah, this is like learning that like Legolas never talks to fucking Frodo.
Yeah. When it's another thing that you just don't notice. It's the guy
Yeah,
in the bear costume, and you're looking
yeah,
at everybody
exactly.
passing the ball. Damn. But you get the point. I mean, but that's the whole point of, just not showing death in a way that you still are getting that scary moment and getting that piece of information and moving forward. So it's
Yeah,
smart directing. So, again, I mean, I don't know if Steven Spielberg knows this, but he's like a pretty good director. So props to you.
I mean, he's good at getting a PG-13 rating. Like, I'd love to
He's,
see him.
yeah, yeah.
Love to see him actually like shoot death. Like, I want to see a rated R Jurassic
You want
Park
to
movie.
see I was gonna say, that. I mean, this is not with dinosaurs at all, but that he was working on Schindler's List the same time that he was working on the
Yeah,
first Jurassic Park movie.
which is really impressive to make two like iconic movies and not have to like degrade anyone in quality.
Two completely different and yet completely incredible films at the same time. And then Schindler's List got awards and stuff. And I don't think Jurassic Park got any like Oscar, Golden Globe, anything. I don't.
That makes
Well,
sense. They
it
probably
must
got
have had
something for special effects.
Yeah. Okay, that's another thing that I wanted to talk about with this, because the first movie, Jurassic Park, is so well known for accurately balancing practical effects with visual effects, like post kind of stuff. Because in the 90s, that's when a lot of, VFX, CGI, everything was kind of coming up, and people were like really quick to jump on that. But it was very smart and very iconic that Spielberg, for the first Jurassic Park movie, was like, look, we need to balance. There are times where it's going to look better to do these practical effects, to do these sort of puppet / animatronic dinosaurs. And there are going to be moments where I can use a little bit of this new, CGI stuff. And even when we do use the CGI stuff, he tried to do it in a way where it's like it's at nighttime, it's a little bit visually covered to just kind of like soften things.
And raining especially.
Yeah, and raining especially. And that was the perfect choice, and it holds up so well even today when you rewatch it for like the 10th time. In this film, in The Lost World, I personally think they also did it pretty well. There were moments where it was a little heavier in the CGI that they could have strayed away from, but there were puppets,
they were really
and
smart.
Animatronics still.
The puppets and the animatronics were smart. Let's break it down. The very first scene, they used the little chompies. Those were completely practical. Up until they probably started jumping on the little girl, then that was probably CGI. And then the Stegosauruses, all 100% CGI in broad daylight, looked really kind of bad, actually. Like, those fucking Stegosauruses. They looked pretty bad. They looked blurry and fuzzy and lacking texture because they did the thing that the fucking Jurassic Park did not do. Broad daylight, running in the open. Like, that's not where you want 90s.
And a close-up. We were like close up on the little Stegosaurus's face.
Well, he looked great because he was a animatronic. He looked incredible. But the adults, not so much.
Yeah, but it's still, I mean, like, there's not like a pass or fail on that kind of thing. I do think overall the balance holds up today more than some other things hold up. You still notice it, but it's better than, like, if this film had done completely CGI dinosaurs, it would look bad, like definitively bad.
I mean, did you see the like behind the scenes of the first movie when they were like looking into stop motion? They almost used stop motion right before like this technology, CGI, basically 3D modeling, came about. They were about to shoot Jurassic World with stop motion, and that would have been a fucking crazy different movie if it was stop motion. That would have been awful. I personally, I fucking hate stop motion. It creeps me out the way everything moves because everything moves wrong. But that would have been a totally different movie. Great timing on the CGI coming around.
Yeah. Plus, stop motion back in the day, I might be way wrong on this, but I think stop motion back in the day was 18 frames per second. It was like a different frame rate that they were shooting it in, because obviously you go frame by frame specifically. So it doesn't even line up as far as like all films are in 24 kind of thing. So yeah, but I could be wrong on that. I could just be pulling that out of absolutely nowhere. So
well, I remember some of the old stop motion T-Rex versus like Stegosaurus fight. I don't know what that's from, but it's an incredibly famous sequence. But it looks bad. I mean, it's definitely like choppy as hell. So I would imagine it's probably like half the frame rate of whatever like live action is. So, I mean, look at us talking about the first movie because we can't find ourselves to talk about Lost World.
Yeah, something I do want to mention, though, about The Lost World that is interesting, especially on the weird adaptation that this is. Yes, it's a book to movie, but it's really a book to movie kind of thing. But the title, The Lost World, is actually a reference to the earliest inspiration for this story, which was a 1925, yes, Andre, 1925, almost 100 years ago, a movie called The Lost World. That was about a crew who go to explore a plateau in South America, and they discover a bunch of Jurassic era creatures.
Oh, really?
including a bunch of dinosaurs. Yeah, like in 1925, like this was the first Jurassic Park, although the Jurassic Park that we know and love nowadays is strictly based on the Michael Crichton stuff. But Michael
Mm.
Crichton took his inspiration from that. It's like kind of, if you go back and watch it, it's crazy because you're like, oh, holy shit, how have I never seen this like 1925 version of Jurassic Park,
Hmm.
basically? It's like people running and screaming out of things, and there's like stop motion dinosaurs.
Yeah, I will say Michael Crichton probably didn't need that as like inspiration because Michael Crichton's thing is like, what if there was an amusement park of pirates? What if there was an amusement park of robots? What if there was an amusement park of so somebody in Michael Crichton's family must have been killed by a roller coaster or something because that dude fucking hates amusement parks and every book he has is about an amusement park that goes totally wrong.
He must have had some kind of vendetta against Disney back in the day, and then like, fast forward and Jurassic World slash Jurassic Park, the entire Jurassic franchise is not Disney. It is Universal, and it
Universal.
will always be Universal.
There's actually some parts that I thought they shot to make it a ride at Universal. Do you ever look out for that in movies where like you try and spot
Oh
something
yeah.
that like the what's it called the corporate conglomerate gets into the movie because they want it to be a ride? And it's like
Hmm.
when they were running from that T-Rex down the ravine into the waterfall, that felt very ride-esque to me. I was like,
Oh yeah. You could
did
very much have like a Pirates of the Caribbean style waterfall that like the boat goes through,
yeah,
or like, whatever thing you're on goes through.
being chased by
Yeah.
a T-Rex and yeah, that's very universal ride to me.
Which of course they do have a universal ride for this, but it was Jurassic Park and then it was now Jurassic World, or was it something else before it was Jurassic World?
I
I only
actually
know
don't
when they
know.
finally switched it over to Jurassic World because I hadn't really been paying attention to Universal Studios like the theme park before that.
Yeah, me neither. I went to Universal Studios in the year 2000 and I have not been since, but I have seen a YouTube video of the Jurassic World ride and that uses like the new like Indominus Rex and stuff like that. It looks like a fun ride,
Yeah.
but
It's a fun
yeah,
ride. I love a water ride. I'm a big fan of a water ride.
yeah, no, I would struggle to find a sequence fun enough to make a ride out of in the Lost World.
It's
Maybe
tough. Even the way that they did. Well, I don't want to spoil like what the translation was from the film series to the water ride. I hope that you go on it and kind of can make your own
the Jurassic
assumptions and
World
thoughts of
water
it.
ride.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go on the Jurassic World water ride. So tomorrow,
The
so skip
next time I'm
work,
in Universal
go.
Studios, I okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So I didn't go for 24 years, but I maybe next year is
But
the
maybe
year.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah. You might as well. It's good. It's fun. Um Total sidetrack back to the Lost World. I'm really happy that they had a Stegosaurus in the first place because the Stegosaurus is my favorite dinosaur
Oh, really?
because it is a plant based motherfucker like me and it is a spiky little punk motherfucker.
Uh,
So I like a Stegosaurus.
big vibes of the fuck. What is it? Name? Let me look it up. The Stegosaurus always gave me the same vibe as the Ankylosaurus. Do you remember what the Ankylosaurus is?
Absolutely not.
It's the like big hard shelled one with a big ball for a tail.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
them and the Stegosaurus is always like we're buddies in movies, like because they're both vegetarians and they're both like very designed to fight the T Rex because obviously the T Rex wants to eat them the most.
Yeah, they go to like underground shows out of town and
Hmm.
have gone to raves and stuff. They're those
Yeah,
kind of people. Yeah,
yeah.
I love
You
it.
you
What's your
you.
favorite dinosaur?
I I don't know that I have a favorite dinosaur. Being such a fucking Jurassic Park kid as when I was younger, like Jurassic Park was and might still be my favorite movie of all time.
Mm.
Um, but I mean, just to be boring, I think T Rex, like it's so fucking cool. Like it's the
Mhm.
biggest and the baddest dinosaur, and They never should have gone past T-Rex and made the fucking Indominus Rex and all that stuff. Because you could tell by the logic of this movie, they were like, all right, in the first movie we had a T-Rex, in the second movie we have two T-Rexes,
Yeah.
and they're
What
like,
do we do next?
yeah,
Yeah.
how about two of them? Yeah.
Speaking of the T-Rex, this actually perfectly segues us over to my pop quiz. Andre,
Ooh.
are you ready for a movie theater butter pop quiz?
Hell yeah. 100%.
Amazing.
Here we go.
I have one question for you. One very difficult question for you. And that question is, it is multiple choice, so I'll give you the options and then you can answer.
What was
Question
the
is
villain's
this.
name?
What was the villain? What was the birth year of the villain? In what geologic period did the Tyrannosaurus Rex live? Your options are A, the Triassic period, B, the Jurassic period, C, the Cretaceous period, or D, the Paleogene period.
I want to say either Triassic or Cretaceous. I played a dinosaur game on the CD-ROM as a kid, and it was one of the best fucking games I've ever played. So I should know this. I think it's Cretaceous.
Is that your final answer?
That is my final answer.
You are correct.
I fucking knew it.
The T-Rex lived not in the Jurassic period, despite it being so commonly associated with Jurassic Park. The T-Rex lived in the Cretaceous period, which was just before the Jurassic period. No, just after the Jurassic period.
Yeah, you couldn't even fucking make me put those in order. They're all so like mixed matched for me. Like I don't know what dinosaur was in what time. I don't know what time came before what time. It's all I know is the land before time.
Damn, nice reference. Nice one. I haven't watched that like actually ever in my life. I've never seen any of those movies, which is crazy.
Oh man, I was such a fucking land before time kid. It was awesome. Littlefoot. And the what were they called? Like Big Teeth or something. I haven't seen it since I was like 6, but I loved that movie.
It's good. It's supposedly a classic. I was more of a Brave Little Toaster kind of gal myself.
And yeah, I watched Brave Little Toaster too. That movie fucked me up as a kid when the vacuum vacuums over his own cord and starts to choke to death. That really fucked me up as a kid.
Literally to this day, when I vacuum, if I like accidentally go over any kind of cord or something, and it almost never sucks it up because technology is good nowadays. But every time I kind of have like a trigger of that moment.
Yeah, that movies don't fuck you up as like they did when we were kids.
Yeah, real life does that instead. So, Andre, our final question of the day: how do you think this film is best watched? If at all.
No. I think this movie's best watched as a child.
Okay, that's good. That's a good answer.
Don't even bother comprehending the first 20 minutes. Just don't think about anything because none of it will make sense to you. Just enjoy the dinosaurs and seeing them run around and people get chased by dinosaurs. Because if you think about the movie at all, it all starts to fall apart.
Yeah, totally valid. I mean, like that was the first 20 minutes of our conversation was trying to understand why nothing made sense with where the characters were going and where they came from.
No, and we didn't figure it out.
No, we didn't, and we never will. No. I totally agree with you. I think watching this as a kid, that's a really good one because I've never thought of it in that sort of context of like when in your life to watch this film. But really, that is the best. I think if you are watching this film as an adult, if you're just picking it up now to kind of like refresh yourself in the Jurassic franchise and the Jurassic world, if you may, definitely watch it while it's raining outside. Definitely watch it at nighttime. Definitely watch it with 1 or 2 candles lit in your living room. Another option I think of how this film is best watched is camping, actually, because of that like scary camping moment. Yeah.
Honestly,
that could hit harder.
Yeah, that would be really good. That would improve so much more. But then I'd be so scared trying to fall asleep in my tent at night.
You need to be like a group of teenagers between the ages of like 15 and 20 and all at a camp trip, you know, and instead of watching like Saw or like any of the Friday the 13th, like that's too obvious. Watch The Lost World.
Yeah. Or, you know, do yourself a favor and watch Jurassic Park.
Or just watch Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good option, good option. Well, thank you, Andre, for being with us today. Thank you for talking about a film that is adjacent to one of your favorite stories.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Because we technically already recorded a Jurassic Park episode. When I came to you and I asked you, like, we were going to do an episode, you were immediately like, let's do Jurassic Park.
Oh, yeah. I know so much about Jurassic Park.
That's great. I've already recorded an episode. So can we do The Lost World?
Yeah. And I was like, sure, I could watch The Lost World again. I haven't watched it since I was a kid. It's probably still good.
Yeah. And you know what's like kind of funny and kind of sad is I was trying to find the recordings for that Jurassic Park episode that my friend and I did. I found his audio. I can't find my audio. So that episode may be lost forever, and we may only have this episode for Jurassic Park. But we'll see. We'll see if I can't dig it up someday.
It's like the Lost World book. The first one never happened, and we're just gonna start fresh from something else.
Yeah, exactly. Way to tie it all in.
Yeah, professional.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Andre. And we will see you on some other episode, TBD.
All right. Bye.
Well, it sounds like that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to Movie Theater Butter, a TillKim Productions podcast. Make sure to follow us where you're listening and on our Instagram page at the Movie Theater Butter podcast. And hey, it couldn't hurt if you gave us a quick 5-star rating on this platform. All right, I'm done. See you next episode.